hard to know how much it is, because they could see that the. Here, right?
I was just careful.
How do you make the slideshow?
We got to slideshow. Start slideshow.
Seven o'clock. I'd say get started anytime.
Yeah.
I get paid by the hour. My clock started at 6,
I
so
know. Richard has 58 slides, so.
I know I've talked to him.
Right, okay. He knows there's 20 minutes, but he tends to run long. So
Yes.
So we should,
Yes.
we should start.
Okay.
Progress.
hey Adrian, I know this one's loud. I probably just have to eat it.
Hello? Yeah. Hello, everybody. Here we will get started probably here. And so I'm going to get started here by next slide. There we go. So we'll start with.
That's the end.
Okay.
This is Turner.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Um,
No, it's the
No, it's
computer.
computer.
Okay, all right, that'd be better. Okay, so to start with, we have a bunch of people on Zoom, which is good. You need to remember to use your raise hand feature or put the questions in the chat. And then we know that you're, if you want to have a question or something like that. So, okay. Eva, can you? Order unmute her. Okay. We want to go to the next. Go ahead. Let's move on here. Okay, can you slide back up?
Yeah, after I. Back from the.
Okay. Okay. So let us.
They have their mics on, so they keep coming up.
All right,
I need
membership report, Paula, do you have anything to say about that?
We need to share the screen. I can't see it.
If you probably guess what the challenges we're having is we're trying to bastardize the technology. We're trying to do a hybrid Zoom and room in a EF room that is not qualified to do that. So we're forcing it to bend to our will, but that's a challenge. So thanks for your patience while we.
All right. So, Paula, do you have anything that you wanted to say? Yes.
Oh, yeah. Well, we combined, oh, that's okay. We combined,
No, you need to use it so that the people elsewhere can hear you.
we combined June and July this year. And so we had 17 renewals and 2 new members. We're doing great. We have 168 members for 2022. And if you want to join Sustainable Rossmore or send your renewal check, you can send it to me, or you can leave it with Kathy Seidel here at the table in the back, our member outreach chair.
I'd like to thank Kathy, because she has done a great job of getting in contact with everybody and bringing in lots of people from last year. Okay, next.
We should also be able to.
Yeah. Okay, the next thing is, want to talk a little bit about the new website. We've just introduced this new website today, actually, and I'm not going to share this with Zoom people because I'm afraid to do that. Well, I'm just not sure I can get back to doing the other thing, that's all. Ta-da, there we go. Okay. And so what we have here are home pages for each of the committees, the main committees in our club. So if you click on one of those, Planet Friendly Eating, for example, all of the various actions that they've identified are there and examined. We go back to home. You can see all of these various different things. Now, one of the things that's important about this is that there's a member login, and the member login is important because we actually have identified members in this new website, and so you have a username and a password. In the next day or two, you will be receiving an email with your username and a temporary password. And so we want to ensure that you follow that link when you get it, set up your own password, your own secure password, and use it going forward. You don't have to use your name, your username and password just to see the website. You can see pretty much everything that's on it. But there are some things that are members only, like the minutes, various documents of that sort. And if you want to participate in a committee, or if you want to participate in a forum, those kinds of things, then you need to be using the username and password. Okay?
For sure.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. So we're back to so anyway, so please please check it out. And there's a lot of new capabilities on this website. And so what we will be doing is over the next month or two, we'll be holding tutorials, we'll sending you emails, encouraging you to use them. At this point, I'd like to invite Dwight Walker, who's the president of the GRF. A little bit of a challenge for sustainable loss model.
Hey, Dwight, so that the 30 people on Zoom can see you, could you stand here so they can see you?
Hello, everybody out there. Hi, I'm Dwight Walker, President of the GRF Board. Some of you may know that GRF has been looking at a SWRF, Satellite Water Recycling Facility, over the last 6 years and anticipating its use to irrigate the golf courses. It is now that feasibility study has entered the phase where we find it's really expensive. Really expensive from a capital investment as well as an operating. So no decision has been made on it yet, but what we're looking at is a situation that I wasn't aware of. In our region, in Contra Costa County, Central SAN, the Central Contra Costa Sewer District, owns the sewage in our area. East Bay Mud provides the water. In many other areas within Contra Costa County, East Bay Mud owns both. So they have every incentive to turn sewage into water, whether it's non-potable or potable or potable, I don't know how to say that. We don't have that situation. We have two competing agencies who are not striving to get that done. And so as we look at this very expensive satellite facility just for our golf courses, when we have lots more water needs within our mutuals as well as within GRF, we think there should be a regional solution. So Lafayette, Orinda, Moraga are in the same boat that we're in. They don't have access to recycled water. Other parts of the Contra Costa do, other parts of Walnut Creek, Heather Farms, Boundary Oaks, those golf courses are all irrigated by canal water from the Delta. We don't have access to that. There's no canal here and there's no pipeline to get recycled water. So I said to Brian or to Adrian the other day, the board has authorized me to write a letter to all of these communities surrounding us to see if we can push for a regional solution. Get CCCSD, the sewer district, to work with East Bay Mud to come up with recycled water. We need water for our future. It's for us to drink as well as to irrigate and to survive. And so this is a long-term project. This is 5 to 10 years at least, but to at least get all the players together and try to do something. So maybe calling on Adrian and your group to help us stage something for the regional community to see what pressures we can apply to the sewer district. By the way, all the members of the sewer district board are elected. Our representative is David Williams. He's up for re-election this year. So that's a political thing that we could all be involved in. So anyway, just a brief introduction to something that we're working on. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Yeah, so this is something that maybe we should be taking a look at for the next little while.
There's 30 people.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I want to see you as well.
Okay. I don't know if I want to see that. Okay.
33 people.
Okay, well, hello, everybody. So yes, this is something that perhaps as we focus more on water is our intent over the next year. this would be an area where we could probably usefully apply some of our political skills and that we've developed over time. Okay, with that, I would like to introduce Paula Erickson, who's going to talk to us about I'm sorry, about exactly how this goes. So first, we're going to have Paula talk, then we're going to have John T, as he's usually referred to, and finally, we're going to have Richard.
This one. Okay.
Is that yours, John, or is that?
That's mine.
That's
Yeah.
yours.
That's
Okay.
mine.
Very good. Okay, great. Hey, Paul, could you come up here and face? It's right here. It's right here. There's no, it's not.
There we go.
Oh, okay. You ready? Am I supposed to hold this too at the same time?
Yes,
The
so,
microphone?
Well,
or, is that, no, it was off. Yeah.
bring this.
I got too much. Yeah, all right.
Isn't technology wonderful?
You look good.
Oh, good. That's the
I just have
important
to
thing.
change your name from Adrian Byron to.
Okay. Yeah, it says talking, Adrian. Yep. All right. Well, thank you all for coming. I'm so pleased by the turnout tonight and welcome to everyone joining us by Zoom. Our topic tonight is the drought in California and landscape water use in Rossmore, a topic that we hope will receive more attention from all our mutuals and residents. We all need to prepare for climate change and a hotter, drier future. As much as we would have liked to stop climate change, or at least slow it down, we are all now suddenly in adaptation mode, not just fighting climate change, but learning to live with it permanently, at least in our lifetime. For all of California, it means adapting to water scarcity. For East Bay Mud, our water utility, it means continuing to raise prices and add on drought surcharges to pay for regular water and infrastructure expenses and as a way to convince water users to conserve. For Rossmore, it means higher coupon rates. And for all of us, the possibility of future water restrictions that we should start to prepare for now when we have the time to make well-planned decisions. East Bay Mud raises their rates each July. This year and next year, the annual rate increase is scheduled to be 4%. They also tack on a drought surcharge each July when necessary, calculated on the water used, volume of water used. This year it is 8%. In 2015, it was 25% in response to years of drought, but it was removed the following year. Since the regular price increases can be cumulative, our only relief has been the winter months when a rainy season meant that the landscape irrigation could be turned off or only used sporadically, so our water usage would drop. This year, the winter of 2020 to 2021, there was no relief. The regular landscape irrigation was never really turned off. Rossmore residents and their mutuals need to study their water use and make some difficult choices that will really be effective, not just tinkering around the edges of the problem. Our previous landscape manager, Rebecca Pollen, left mutuals with good ideas for changing their landscapes to reduce water use. And now we need to think about upping our game on those same ideas to make serious inroads into our landscape water use.
This program tonight is designed to help Rossmore residents understand how they can start to work with their mutuals to develop ideas and action plans for reducing their dependence on landscape watering. First, we want to try to understand how much water we use for landscape and how much we are paying for it. Then our Rossmore landscape manager, John T., will review how to make plant and irrigation changes in Rossmore and how to work with your contractors and MOD to figure out effective changes that will be worth your investment. Then Richard McPherson, a landscape architect and Rossmore resident, will introduce you to guidelines for good planting design, including some plant suggestions that may be new to Rossmore and how to get extra help when you are planning these changes. There will be a few minutes for questions after every speaker. So first, how do we know how much water we use for landscaping and what are we paying for it? This is one of the enduring mysteries of Rossmore. Because in most mutuals, domestic or household water use is billed from the same meter as landscape water use. There are no individual manor water meters in most mutuals and probably no chance of ever being able to pay for the huge expense of installing them. Your president of your mutual or your project director may or may not review the individual East Bay Mud meter invoices before signing off for payment. In my project 27 Third Mutual, there is one meter for 48 manors. I am showing two typical invoices from that meter in project 27 for a 2-month billing period. One in the very early spring of 2017, a very rainy year on your left, and one from the following summer on your right. The invoice includes gallons used, average per day, various other charges that are explained on the back of the invoice. But I want to focus on the highlighted areas. There we go. This is a detail of the previous slide. In this invoice detail, you can see how much water was used in gallons for that 2-month period in the spring. 260,304 gallons were billed for that invoice. For the summer invoice, in the detail below it, the gallons used jumps to 1,083,104. But that low winter, early spring number of gallons used in a rainy year, 260,000, is a good number to have because it is just about, very approximately, how many gallons are used for domestic or household use only when the irrigation system was turned off or only minimally used. If we assume that most household water use stays static, month in, month out, all year long, the remainder of usage in any billing period will be for landscape. The invoice, of course, it tells you how East Bay Mud prices their water, and in this case, the total dollar amount difference is about $6,000 for that additional water used in the summer, which is a pretty big reason to take a careful look at ways to reduce landscape water use. But tracking usage by dollars can be very misleading. Price increases are cumulative year over year. Comparing one period to the same period a year ago by cost will not be very accurate. Look at the number of gallons used, and this is where you will be able to see progress when you make substantial changes to your irrigation system. If you make changes in your landscape to reduce water use, you can't know whether you have accomplished anything unless you know where you started. This is one way to do it. You don't have to just wildly shoot in the dark, hoping for water reduction through irrigation changes, but unable to see a positive result that you can share with your residents. Over time, you'll be able to see it in the reductions of gallons used if you work with your mutual to review the invoices. So our coupon will always go up, but by reducing our landscape water use, we may be able to slow down how fast it goes up. If there's any questions on this segment, John T. is up next.
Hold on. Wait. Excuse me.
Sorry.
Can you get you a microphone so that the people on Zoom can hear you as well?
I'm not quick to do the math, but what does that break down to gallons? You know, there are so many units, so many gallons, so many days, so what's the average?
Oh, you know what? I didn't even bother trying to figure that out. I think I did it at one time years ago when I was looking at this.
Uh-huh.
But my feeling at the time, my focus was on landscape water use. I don't think the household or domestic water use was really the problem.
Yeah, I'm just curious.
Yeah,
because,
if
you know,
you're-
as a
yeah,
consumer, you know,
sure,
just kind
sure.
of having an idea
Sure.
of how much water we.
Yeah.
So,
So it'd be, I think, probably more applicable for you to look at invoices for your own mutual or your own project. Yeah.
Paula?
yeah.
I just did 1 million divided by 48 households,
Yeah.
divided by 62 days, and you got 336 gallons.
But that includes landscape water.
That's
Yeah.
1 million.
Yeah, so 260,000 divided by,
Is that the winter? If it's the winter?
yeah, no, 260,000 would be divided by
Okay,
48. by
okay,
two,
so
yeah.
260,000
Yeah.
on would be 87.
87.
That's about right.
Yeah, is that about right? Yeah, I don't really have a feeling for that. And I did contact East Bay Mud today and ask them, I explained this situation. And I said, if people want to have access to an invoice that is this old, that goes back all the way to 2017, can they get it? Obviously through the right channels, your director, your mutual president, MOD, that type of thing. And she said, yes, their records are available back to 2010. So,
Yeah, has a question. That's the outro.
is that it?
Ask, Gail has a question.
Okay.
They'll
You
hear
can't
it
hear,
on
you
Zoom.
can't hear me. Can you say, can you let Dan, can you let Gail?
Dale, can you unmute and ask your question?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Because I'm getting a message that I'm not allowed to be unmuted. GRF has budgeted just for the GRF portion, $579,000 for water. That's just GRF. That doesn't count all of the mutuals.
For how long a period of time?
A year.
5 minutes for a year. For all of GRF buildings, landscape, everything?
Yeah.
Swimming pools.
Yeah, obviously it helps when we can get water from the creek. So, so that's just budgeting for water that we have to pay for.
Yeah. So I'm still thinking gallons, but you're talking dollars. So,
Yeah, I just wanted to throw that figure out.
so if there's nothing else,
Okay.
John will start.
Okay, while John is coming up, I just want to ask that for the speakers here, if you do have a question, and so you can use the microphone, but we have a request from one of the Zoomers that the speaker, if the speaker would just repeat the question, because they're much closer, because the Zoomers are actually hearing what's said in the microphone on this device. So it'll be clearest if the speaker repeats the question.
And then it's, you know, how to run. There we go. Yep, they're good. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, no, they're seeing this, though.
Oh, okay.
So, yes.
Stop share.
Okay. I don't want to stop the share. All right. Sorry.
This one.
Or.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
can turn that down.
Hello, everyone. My name's John Tawas-Jurna. That's actually how you pronounce my last name. So for those of you that don't know me, I'm the new landscape manager. I see a lot of familiar faces out there. But I'm going to talk today about water conservation in Rossmore, and mostly as it pertains to landscape. So I'm going to start by going over some of the drought conditions over the last year. Back in April 21st, 2021, Governor Newsom proclaimed a statewide drought emergency. Then later that month, East Bay Mud let everyone know that their reservoirs were only 69% full, which caused the East Bay Mud Board to release a stage 1 drought emergency. And they were asking for a 10% district-wide conservation goal. Fast forward to this fall and through the winter, despite some significant atmospheric rains back in October and December, it was the driest January through March rainfall ever recorded. So this year, Governor Newsom, once again, issued an executive order calling for a greater drought response. The East Bay Mud Board, a month later, announced that they were in a stage 2 drought emergency and mandated a 10% district-wide use reduction. And then this past month, in July 1st, they added an 8% drought surcharge to everyone's water use. So this is actually data that East Bay Mud puts out pretty much daily, and it keeps track of their reservoirs, the ones that serve our area. The ones that are most important are the Pardee Reservoir and the Comanche. They're the two biggest reservoirs in our region. And you can see the Pardee is actually doing okay right now at 97% full, but the Comanche is only 50%. And overall, East Bay Mud, their storage is only 68% right now, which I think is better at this time of year compared to last year, but still not where they want to be at all. So this is just a picture of the Pardee Reservoir. You can see how far down the water is in comparison to previous years. You know, it used to be at the top parts of those sands, and same thing with the Comanche Reservoir. A lot of these sort of islands that are appearing there used to not be there. So I think we all know we're in a pretty severe drought. So kind of moving on to landscape irrigation here in Rossmore. So irrigation takes up a considerable amount of our water use, but it's hard to predict the exact number, as kind of Paula was talking about. And because most of our East Bay Mud meters are combined with landscape and domestic. We do have for irrigation, there are 402 smart irrigation controllers throughout all of Rossmore. The name of the company is ET Water, and we work with them to help service and maintain them. Every irrigation valve in Rossmore has been assigned a certain station number, and it's also on one of the 402 controllers. Each station has different characteristics, which we actually input into our ET Water Manager system. And the different characteristics, they include plant type, irrigation method, root depth, slope, soil type, and sun shade conditions. The system will then calculate the number of days and the time each valve will run based on the input characteristics. We have some wiggle room. I can go on and adjust things myself. I can, from my computer, turn on any valve around any of your homes. I have countless irrigation maps of all over Rossmore, so it's pretty cool. The irrigation will automatically adjust depending on the time of year. Another cool thing is it does have rain sensors, so if there is rainfall and the controllers are connecting properly with the satellites, they will turn off automatically. So plant type and irrigation methods have the biggest impact on the irrigation scheduling. So for how long the station comes on and the number of days. I'm going to focus mostly on irrigation methods today because I know Richard's going to go in depth into the plant type. So, talking about irrigation methods, we had traditional spray and rotors kind of as our older practices, and you'll see a lot of this, especially traditional spray, throughout all of Rossmore, even till this day. The newer practices, so we're trying to switch a lot of traditional spray to MP rotator nozzles, to bubblers, and drip when we can, when applicable. So kind of going over the pros and cons of traditional spray. These are your standard pop-up sprinklers that you see probably come on a lot around your units pretty much every day. They're affordable, easy to set up. They're easy to find breaks. It's great for smaller areas, and they have a high precipitation rate, which means that the water is applied very quickly. And so they really don't run for very long. The cons, though, which there are many to these, is that the nozzles often clog. The heads break very, very easily. The heads will often spin. I used to do irrigation inspections all the time at my previous job, where I would go on, turn on a valve, look at every single head, and you often find that one head is just turned completely around in a different direction. Now, you can just spin them back, but you often find when you go back 3 months later, they're spun back right back around. So, that's a constant battle that we're trying to fight. Another thing is there's quite a bit of loss to evaporation and misting, and the heads. It just changed slides on me there automatically. Sorry. And there's also potential a chance for a lot of amounts of runoff. So rotors, these, once again, it's easy to find breaks. They're the type of sprinklers that you see often on large lawn areas. You need less heads, so it's less expensive than adding a bunch of little sprinkler heads. They're the type of, they shoot just one stream and they rotate back and forth slowly. So they have a lower precipitation rate, which means you have to run them longer and you get a better deep soak with them. Some of the cons, though, they break very easily, similar to the traditional spray. Once again, they often spin. There's quite a bit of runoff. It's hard to get them to exactly line up, with the edge of sidewalks or, the edge of a building. And you often find that they don't spray where they were originally set up to spray. So moving on here to MP rotators. So this is a newer type of nozzle. These are one of my favorites. They're very easy to install. You just take the traditional spray heads and you just screw them on top. They're cheap. They're very efficient. It's similarly easy to find breaks in clogged nozzles. They do have a very low precipitation rate, which means you have to run them for a very long time. So unfortunately, on some of our bigger controllers that have like 40 stations, we can't put only MP rotators because it won't water within the certain number of hours at night. So we had to be careful and put them in strategically. Some of the cons, though, they do have some minimal evaporation losses, and when shrubs grow to full size, they do block the little streams that you see there on the photo. Moving on to bubblers. There's a lot of pros to bubblers, and we've been doing a lot of bubbler installations, especially with our newer installations. There's less labor used to install them. It's cheaper up front. They're completely buried, so you don't have any more sprinkler heads popping up in the landscape, and they save water by sort of minimizing evaporation. They have built-in filters, which is great, and that prevents them from clogging. They also apply water only to the plants, so you don't have weeds popping up everywhere like traditional spray. And it's always easy to add additional bubblers. The cons, it does take a while to inspect these systems because the lines are buried and you do have to get down and sort of feel the bubblers to make sure that they're not sort of leaking out not as much as they should be. And they only apply water to one small root zone area. So that is one of the cons. So what we found is when the plants do start to grow, we try to go back out and add more bubblers at the base of the root of the plant. And it's hard to see on the photo I have there. It's really hard to show bubblers in action, but sort of in those red lines that I've drawn, we have little IPS tubing, which is so much more durable than what we're about to talk about, drip. So you all probably have heard a lot about drip. It's great. It's a great water saver. We do have some problems using it here in Rossmore on a large scale sort of way. So I will talk about the cons. It's completely buried, just like the bubblers. It saves a ton of water by minimizing evaporation, and it has a very low precipitation rate. So you do have to run it for a very long time for the plants to get enough water. But the good thing is it has a very slow soak into the soil. Unfortunately, though, the initial cost for installing drip is a lot more. I don't know if anyone's here has ever installed it, but I have personally myself several times, and it can take quite a bit of time to properly set it up. It takes a lot of cutting of the tubes. It ends up being quite a lot of labor up front to get it in the ground. It's also, like I said earlier, it's not as durable, the hose material, and it gets clogged quite often. And really, when you install drip, you need to install a filter right at the valve when you do it. And that's another additional cost that really would be hard to introduce to a lot of different areas in the hospital. But I do think when we have a smaller irrigation station, and it's just for a couple of plants, there are ways where you can start to mix drip into Rossmore. So moving on, we talked about the irrigation methods. Lawn removal has been a big subject, and it's something that I'm probably pushing as my top priority right now throughout all Rossmore. So I have something from the University of California. Their Division of Agricultural and Natural Resources has said that lawn areas use about 50% more water than common trees, shrubs, or ground covers. And simply due to that fact, that lawn removal is the most effective way for us to save water. Lawns can be turned into beautiful landscaped areas with drought-tolerant plants and even seeding areas. And if proper irrigation and drought-tolerant plantings are installed, I've estimated that the water savings can be as high as 65%. Okay, so can I prove that? So we're going to do something here. We'll see how many of you find this interesting, but I'm a math guy, studied engineering in college, so we're going to go through a little math problem right now. So this right here is this hypothetical lawn that I've made in my head, and you see these often in Rossmore, kind of between a sidewalk and a building or a carport, these tiny strips of lawn. This one, in my example, is 40 feet by 5 feet. It's got a total of 18 sprinkler heads, and more specifically, it has 4 90-degree sprinkler heads, which are at the corner of each of the rectangle, and then 14 total 180-degree sprinkler heads. So you can see down there, I picked Toro 5 Series nozzles at 40 PSI at a given. So these next numbers, the precipitation rates for both the 90-degree and the 180-degree nozzles, that's from a giant spreadsheet that I'll go digging up for that kind of information. You don't have to worry about that. So I've just given that in the equation here. So another given, so once I input this into my system, it pumps it out at 14-minute runtime every 2 days. So that'll be about 15 days per month. So let's start with the calculations. Let's see how many gallons this is actually going to put. So you first multiply the number of 90-degree heads by the precipitation rate for that type of nozzle. So that ends up being only about 4.8 gallons per minute. 0.48. Yes, about a half a gallon. The next thing you would do is you take 14 heads times 0.23 gallons per minute, and that gets us to 3.22 gallons. So now we know that adding those together, 3.7 gallons per minute to water this lawn area. We can then times that by our runtime for the day. So then we're using about 50 gallons per day to water this lawn area. Okay. Well, let's multiply that by the number of days per month, and we get 777 gallons per month. It doesn't seem like a whole lot, but this is a small area, and we'll get to some other things. So right now, we're talking about the peak season. So during the hot summer months, this station would be watering, it would be using about 777 gallons. So in order to find out the gallons per year for this little lawn area, we need to create kind of a model or equation. And I've done that using certain percentages at the different times a year. So we pretty much have the water off during January to February. I mean, November to February. So you'll see on the graph there that it's at 0 gallons. And then it slowly climbs up as we get to the hotter months. So using that equation, we can then get about 4,545 gallons per year for this little station. Okay, now let's see what it is with a drought tolerant planting. So this is the same area, same size. What we've done now is just put bubblers into it and added 18 drought tolerant plants. So we're gonna have 2 bubblers per plant, so we get a nice spread of the water around them. And they're about a 1/4 gallon per minute, those bubblers. So it's a very similar process that we just went through, calculation. We have 18 plants times the number of bubblers per plant, so 36 total bubblers. Multiply that by the gallons per minute, and we get 9 total gallons per minute for the station. And you might be thinking that, okay, well, that's higher than what you just said for the lawn, but actually, since it's bubblers, we're only running it for 2 minutes at once. So it applies it really quick for a short amount of time. So then we're only at about 18 gallons per day. You multiply by the number of days per month, get 270 gallons per month. That's during the peak season. So, similar process, we're then going to put it over our graph, and we end up getting about 1,600 gallons per year. So quite a considerable drop there. This is comparing the two, the lawn and the drought tolerant plantings over time. You can really see, especially during the hottest months of the year, how much less water it is. So we'll do some more comparison. So it's a 200 square foot area. So the reason I can do that is I can then find per lawn how much water per square foot we're using for the entire year. And that ends up being around 23 gallons per square foot. And in Rossmore right now, in all the landscape areas, there's about 2.8 million square foot of lawn, which is about 65 acres still. And I have the data from back in 2003, and we have chipped away at it and gotten little by little away. But if you were to multiply the square foot by the number of square foot of lawn, that would be 63.6 million gallons per year in my perfect little scenario. So moving on to the drought tolerant planting. Yeah, sorry. So we did have a question for the crowd for those of you on Zoom, and that number does not include the golf courses, the 2.8 square million feet. That's just landscape areas. So doing the same thing with the drought tolerant planting, we now have a 200 square foot area. It ends up being about 8 gallons per square foot. And we multiply that by 2.8 million square foot of lawn. It's 22.1 million gallons per year, which still is a big total, but That is a 65% water saving. Now, you might be thinking there, well, okay, does that mean if we switch all of our lawns to drought tolerant plantings, are we actually saving about 42 million gallons of water per year? No, it does not mean that. The little situation I built here is for using traditional spray. There's a lot, we're doing a lot more than traditional spray throughout Rossmore. We're using the MP rotators in a lot of different places. You know, there's rotors. Every certain lawn area is different. So that number, that's on the high end, in my opinion. I do think if we replaced all the lawns, you know, throughout all the mutuals and the trust properties, it would be probably closer to about 30 millions of gallons of water per year, we would say. So this is one of these big lawn areas. This one's still out there today. So I need your help talking to people and sort of, you know, I need to use you all to help us get rid of these lawn areas. We don't want them anymore. You know, I'm trying to hold on to the ones that are behind people's homes. They use as picnic areas, but these sort of large expansions, the small little sections that I talked about earlier, you know, we really need to start chipping away and removing those from the landscape. Turning them into this. This is, I think you all know this area, Golden Rain 18. It was done 6 or 7 years ago. I think all the residents there like it, you know, it's saving them so much water and it's beautiful too. So this is my last slide. I just want to put this on here as well. Please call the work order desk if you do see any sort of irrigation leak, if you see runoff, issues. We'll send out a tech, you know, as soon as possible. They're fixing so many main lines right now, but trust me, they see those work orders and they get out there and repair. So, questions? Mm-hmm. For those of you on Zoom, one comment was made that the work order desk is effective. And if you do submit pictures, especially to that email, it makes it a lot easier for us. Okay, I'm going to start with questions in the room. So Monique. Yeah.
On the weekends. I'll call security. The work order desk closed.
Yeah. So
So what do you do about that? I don't know.
So, well, no, you're actually right to do that, to call security. And for anyone in Zoom that might have not heard that, it was asked, who do you call on the weekends or after hours? So yes, call Securitas. I probably should have had that number up there as well. We have someone, his name's Adon Marino. He comes out on the weekends and turns off valves. He'll fix something immediately right then and there. But oftentimes when there is a mainline leak, he can just shut down the valve and there's no more issues. So.
Yeah, Dale Hamilton has a question.
Hi. Hey, Dale. I don't think we have any more.
Yeah, thank you. Hey, John, 2 evenings ago, we were coming back from outside and on Rossmore Parkway in 2 locations, the big sprinklers were spraying out into the lane. One of them even far enough that it covered one of the 2 lanes at that location. So I'm wondering what you can do to eliminate that.
Right. So a lot of the time it just needs a different setting. There's a little tool that you can use to screw the tops of those rotors and it makes it so it doesn't rotate as far either direction. So that's another thing that you just submit a work order for. One of our techs will get out there. They'll use the tool and adjust it. But, you know, they do need to unfortunately run the system for a little bit of time during the day in order to make those types of fixes. So, you know, they do look for that when they do their normal sort of yearly inspections, but yeah.
And John, I've got a question for you. And one of your first slides, you said that you described the satellite irrigation system.
Mhm.
And you said that you keep a lot of detailed information broken down by, slope, location,
Mhm.
plant type, et cetera. I would think that as mutuals get tired of paying these higher and higher costs of water, they're going to want to look and figure out where is their low hanging fruit. That is, where are the plants that use a tremendous amount of water disproportionately, for planting types that people aren't really happy about. And so what the question is, actually, the big question is there any way that they can come to you and say, here's our mutual or our project? Can you just give us a quick, view of where those problem areas might be besides turf?
Yeah, so a lot of the question there is in reference to earlier when I was talking about the different station breakdowns and controllers that we have. And, other than turf, what are we doing to try and eliminate, water, excess water use? So a big thing, and we find it quite often, is that due to it being expensive to setting up a whole nother irrigation valve and pipeline, in the past, a lot of the time they would tie two irrigation stations together, right? So they would have a lawn running at the same time as a shrub. And that is a giant waste of water. So one thing I'm having my crew look at specifically is finding those stations, separating them out, tying them into other shrub stations nearby, so we're not, wasting money trying to install a whole new valve and everything. But I certainly can work with mutuals, sort of show them the irrigation maps that I have, trying to update them and make them a little bit more of a digital format, as we sort of move on. But I'm happy to share those with mutuals when they ask. Yeah.
Okay, terrific. Well, thank you very much, John.
Thank you.
It was very, very informative.
Well, tell us about plants to actually use. Well, depends on it. Take until about 25. I know, I'm trying to find where. Okay, go.
All right, hi. Okay, here we are. So in 1975, I was talking about drought, water-saving plants, and warding off the potential of climate change.
Okay, I'm sorry, we don't have it on Zoom. All right.
Pardon?
Yeah.
So I'm Richard McPherson, landscape architect and the coordinator of the Green Landscape Group here in Rossmore. Many of you know me as the former chair of the Sustainable Landscape Committee, which was a committee of Sustainable Rossmore until I started a new venture earlier this year, which was the Green Landscape Group. Okay, so. Okay. All right, so in 1975, I was talking about drought, water saving plants, and warding off the potential of climate change. Now in 2022, I'm talking about drought, water saving plants, while surrounded by the effects of climate change. So how far we've gone on our journey and how little we've traveled. That's pretty gloomy, huh? So the reality is, this is what we have right now. We've made very little progress over the decades. We still love our lawns, regardless of the massive amounts of water they consume. And what do? Well, the logical thing is to panic, which is tempting. Or we can develop and promote approaches for picking up our pace of incorporating more and more green landscape practices. So, right plant, right place. That's what we're talking about right now. Hold on a second. So tonight I will be talking about ideas for good planting design that save water, suggested low water use plants, what low water use landscapes look like, and how to get help when implementing these landscape changes. So there's going to be a lot of information I'm going to be showing you and talking about in the next 15 or 20 minutes. Fingers crossed I get through it. I suggest you just kind of let it wash over you. It's going to be a lot of stuff. And when you get the recording, you may want to watch it again and watch it at your own pace so you can pause and take in this information. Lots of good stuff here. I think you're going to enjoy. So I am.
What does he?
So imagine the next slide.
It's your clicker to
Is there-
space.
Here's one. So if I push this, let's go back. Excellent. Okay. All right, so let's begin here. This is the most recent piece I co-wrote for our paper with Bob Haas called Landscaping in the Fourth Dimension. This one article sums up one of the most important principles for green landscapes. This principle can save us water while also saving us money on pruning costs. So what is it? Aside from using low water use plants, which can save water, it is important to know about selecting and placing plants and trees. Selecting and placing, that's key. The number one thing to know about is how large plants will grow over time. So this is the fourth dimension that I'm referring to. This is the concept of right plant, right place. This is what good planting design is. When we know a plant or tree's potential size, then we can place them in the space allotted them so they don't crowd out other plants or encroach on paving and walkways. This usually means fewer trees and plants in each location, which can save on landscaping costs all the way around, as well as saving on water. The article begins with a sentence, most plants and trees don't need pruning, period. So why are they pruned everywhere? I'm talking about like throughout the country, everywhere. So you have to read the column to find out. And you can find that column in the June 8th issue of Rossmore News. I'll also be sending it out periodically to those on the Green Landscape Group email list. So the rest of this talk is based on the information that's in this article. I will tell you, though, that the primary concept that is mentioned in the article is if we select and place plants properly, we don't need to do the heavy pruning that you see here. So these are shrubs against a blank wall that are pruned for some inexplicable reason. Here's another example. So these were likely pruned to stay below the height of the window. Okay, so we could have used a 3-foot high plant that grows to 3 foot high to achieve this without all this pruning. Here we have a frequently pruned oleander to be kept to a small size. If you were to ask, so why is this happening? Again, everywhere. If you were to ask maintenance companies, they may say, this is what the client wants, which is true. So the question I ask is, well, why does the client want this? What is it about us in this country that we want to see everything pruned into nice little neat packages? That's a question I'm going to be exploring in the future with all of you, I think. I've heard others say that landscape companies do excessive pruning to make more money. So I don't really think this is the case, but the idea is provocative. But that's what, when the subject comes up, that's usually what people say. Another reason that's stated is that why most shrubs are pruned to a smaller size is that in most areas where deer are present, the potential palette of plants is smaller. So those selecting plants will often choose large, sure-fired, deer-resistant plants and keep them pruned to the size that they want. All right, so that's convenient for designers, but it's not a sustainable practice. Extra labor is needed for this ongoing pruning, which means extra maintenance fees and extra green waste. Since plants are usually placed closer together, since they are kept smaller, more water is used to irrigate the plants. So this is a double whammy here. Here we have an oleander that's kept pruned, and it's right next to a walkway. So what we do when we place plants like this is we're setting up a dynamic of heavy pruning on one shrub, in which case is about 30 in a row, where they're going to be heavily pruned for the life of the plant. So designers are not thinking about the fourth dimension, time. What we see here has been taking place throughout our country since perhaps the 1960s, when home gardens started to become popular. At that time, there were not, I'm guessing, there were a limited number of plants available, and there were only plants that grow like 12, 14, 16 feet tall. So they were used everywhere and kept pruned to a small size. And then everyone thought, okay, this is cool. I like this. And we're going to do this decade after decade. So here we have olive tree, which is pruned. This is kind of a process that could be termed lollipopping, where you're kind of rounding the canopy out. So trees don't need pruning. They sometimes like it. Cleaning them up is a good idea, but they don't absolutely need it. All right, so what I'm going to show you now, you'll find this very interesting. Here's the plants I just showed you. Here's what they look like if you let them grow full size. So if you have the room, let's let things grow. So this is the viburnum, the very first one you saw, full size. It grows 10 feet by 15 feet. That's the one, that's this one. Little John grows 5 feet tall by 6 feet wide, full size. Here's how they're being pruned. This is everywhere. Oleander, this is beautiful. I love the way on Rossmore Parkway, they're letting them grow to the full size, very natural looking. I think it looks great. Most oleanders grow 10 to 15 feet high. Along Burn Park, here they are full size, really natural looking, lots of flowers. You get a lot more flowers if you don't prune so often. And this is what they look like when they're pruned. Olive tree unpruned. very natural looking, throughout Europe. And, there's nobody pruning olives all over the place. And the olive groves in Northern California, maybe cutting out dead wood, but they're not pruning them heavily. Compare that with this. Is this how we want to spend our money? Okay, so this is our segue into some suggested looks for low water use landscapes where plants don't have to be pruned regularly. Here, I think, someone correct me if I'm wrong. So this is the landscape in front of the Waterford. So these are ornamental grasses, grow to their full size, easy. I think these are dwarf oleanders that are used here. And I'll look into this more. But again, picking shrubs to grow to their full size, really cool. Okay, so lawns. Okay, they are a thing of the past. We have to let go of them. I guess we're kicking and screaming. We have to let go. We need alternatives. So John's looking into this. Everyone's experimenting. So what they did was on Rossmore Parkway, they're taking a lot of the lawns out on the median. This is the idea that someone came up with a couple of years ago. If you drive by now, it's not far from here. This is at Terra, California, between Terra. So this is a breeze grass and a flowering plant called verbena. They may look really far apart, which they are, but this is excellent placement, I think. These are not really going to have to be pruned. Let them grow to their full size. This is how big they get. It can be a great look. And in place of lawn at both ends, they're trying out Carapia. Okay, learn that name. So we're going to try this out more and more here, I think. I'll talk more about this, but can be watered once every 11 to 14 days. I have a client in Mountain View who's using it, installed it a year and a half ago. She's watering it once every 11 days, once every 11 days. And why is that? The roots of grass go down, lawn go down 8 inches, and the Carapia roots go down almost 3 feet. So it can store a lot of water.
Is that the one outside the security?
No, she's asking if this is the one outside the security gate. This is on Rossmore Parkway at both ends of what I just showed you here. At both ends of this area here at Terra, California, has the Carapia, which they're trying out. I think it looks, it had a rough start, but I think it's looking really good now. This is what it looks like up close. Flowers provide a great habitat for bees. Bees love it. Okay, so here's some photos of what some water-wise landscapes could look like when you take out lawns. They can look like this. This is in San Ramon where Carapia was used. Boulders are very dramatic. You can use up create a lot of character in a landscape by just bringing in boulders and a simple planting. Very dramatic looking. Ground covers and some shrubs. Just letting them all grow. Ornamental grasses. Annual color. Okay, everyone loves their color spot. So this is at as we enter the gate here at the intersection. Okay, these are really on the way out. Too much water, very expensive to install. Okay, so this is a color spot that we had at this intersection. I suggest everyone go and take a look at this. This is at the corner of Tice Creek and Golden Rain. It did have color spots maybe for decades. And this is John's design. So I was very pleased to find that out. I emailed him and said, by the way, who designed this wonderful planting at this intersection? And he said, oh, well, that was me. So great. It takes a lot of skill to do this. This shows some skill. So good work on that. So, all right, so color spots replaced with planting, and this is how they could look. Okay, all right, so I got way ahead of my notes here. So this is all right, let me get into plant terms. So this is a good time. because of the terms that are used to describe planting plants are often interchanged and confused. So we, for decades, we've been using the term drought tolerant plants. Okay, so this is not an accurate term any longer. So one of my things is going to be kind of introducing kind of the new language that we want to get into. Summer dry is more accurate. The reason for this is every plant is drought tolerant somewhere. So summer dry applies to areas of the country that have no summer rain, such as us, except for yesterday. Summer dry is for areas with no summer rain. Other terms for summer dry plants are low water use, water wise, etc. Those are all interchangeable. Native plants are different. These are plants that are native to California. They are usually summer dry, but the two terms are not synonymous. So when people often say, I want native plants, what they're really meaning are summer dry plants. So, summer dry is the term. Okay, see how far I get with teaching the world that. All right, so featured plants. These are some of my favorite plants I've been using for maybe 20 years. Oriental fountain grass. Okay, so on each of these slides, you're going to see the size that these plants grow. I want to help everyone associate the name of a plant with how big it gets. We need to start thinking about that. So you'll be designing and laying out in the fourth dimension, time. Okay, so this is what I was just showing you in front of the Waterford solar panels. Cut them back once a year. Usually February is when you cut them back because that's the start of the growing season, and you do nothing to them. Breeze grass used a lot here, or I think we're using more and more because it most of the time doesn't need to be cut back at all. So we have to place it properly. If it's placed too close to a walkway, you're chopping it off, shortening the life of the plant. So they can grow 6 feet wide. Keep that in mind. Platinum grass, a relative of that breeze grass. We see that being used more often. I think it's a very beautiful, elegant grass. Gets about the same size. This is one I don't see much here, but the Carl Forrester grass grows very upright in masses. I see these planted in big masses in San Ramon in commercial areas along the street. Very beautiful. Again, so 5 feet high, 3 feet wide. Cut them back to the ground each February. That's it. This, I think, can be used a lot. If you have the room for it, the evergreen miscanthus can cover a large area because it can get 6 feet high, 9 feet wide. The new Sunset Park, if you haven't seen it, that's filling in really nicely up in, what is that, Eagle Ridge? They planted some of this there. Stays green in the winter, you just cut the flowers off. So Carapia, which we just talked about. Again, these are some of the favorite plants I've done in my designs with clients all around the Bay Area. I've done maybe 6 properties now, and they're continuing to go in every couple of months. Great success with this. Kangaroo paw. I'd love to see more of that here. Deer do not eat it. Very drought tolerant. Nice bold plant. Lots of flower color. The flowers last up to 3 months. You cut the flowers back and you get more coming up. It comes in a variety of different colors. Very cool. Mexican sage, which you see around here. I think it's a really durable plant, but give it room to spread, so you don't have to chop it off the sides 4 feet by 7 feet. This is also Gregg sage or hot-lipped sage. This is also used more here. Great flower color in the spring, very easy to take care of. A little edge plant, ground germander. Of all the perennials I use in landscapes, this is the primary one I use because it's very drought tolerant. You cut it back usually once a year, and then in the spring it has not spring, late spring, early summer has a flower like this, and you whack it back. Barberry, this is called the rocket. It's a shrub that is bright red or orange in the summer, and then brilliant fall color in the fall, and then loses its leaves. But I think this is a great shrub for here. Barberry, Berberis, the rocket. A California native, Manzanita. We could be using a lot of this here. Deer may nibble on it when it's new, but it becomes more deer resistant as it gets older. Give it room to spread, because everywhere you see it, they don't give it room, and it's sheared as a little 3-foot high, 3-by-3-foot plant. I need to give it room. This is what it looks like, the flower. 2 minutes. Okay. Actually, Adrian said I had another 5. So smoke bush, this is another good one. Okay. So I'm talking fast too. So, okay. Swan Hill olives. Okay, we should be using these everywhere here. It is a true fruitless olive. The ones that we have here are like the regular ones, dropping fruit everywhere, big mess, especially near walkways. Okay, we don't have to eliminate olives. What we do is get Swan Hill olives, no fruit, they're sterile. And they need no water once established. This tree actually, by the way, in Pleasanton, was installed 3 weeks ago. So we brought it, was dug up in Northern California, craned into place, planted full size. Just so you know, in case you're wondering, $6,000 to do that. Take one. Okay, so all right, so over the years, I created a plant palette of all the plants I could think of that I thought would work in this valley. And so I created a database, a spreadsheet with all the plants here. This is an example of it. It's too technical for general use here, but the primary thing it lists is the plant names and then how big they get and the amount of water that they need. Moderate, low, moderate, low, that sort of thing. So that's important information. I forwarded this to Brightview and to John. They could use it if they like, but at least I'm putting it out there. Okay, so just examples of landscapes here. I don't even know where I am in my notes. So, all right. So last year, did a 3-part series, video series on what does a sustainable landscape look like. So in these 3 30-minute long videos, you can learn everything you want to know about sustainable landscaping, green landscaping, which means the same thing. Sustainable landscaping, green landscaping means the same, refers to the same thing. So, so you can send me an email if you'd like a copy of this. Otherwise, I will be sending it out to those on the email list here. It includes things like educating on sustainable landscape principles, summer dry plants, what that means, how to get help with implementing green landscape designs. Okay, so this is a really important topic here, which I don't think I have time to cover. So I really would like to, but I'm running out of time. But if we have time for a Q&A, someone asked me how we can implement green landscape designs here.
In the chat, there's 3 questions already.
Okay, so let me summarize. I got this really fast. All right, what did we talk about? Ideas for good planting designs to save water. Know how large plants grow. These are the takeaways I'm suggesting. Place that they can grow to their full size without ongoing pruning. I talked about suggested low water use plants, what summer dry landscapes look like. And what I didn't talk about is how to get help with implementing these changes. The Green Landscape Group is generally an educational group I created to bring us all together so that we can all collaborate on sharing our information. And so if you want to get on the email list to find out about any of these things here, then send me an email, I'll put you on the list. So one more thing I wanted to share before questions. Now that we have all this information, what do we do with it? Okay, so this is important. Our movement toward a water-saving, sustainable landscape will only gain momentum with the action of all of you listening to this. I'm here to offer information, so hopefully you will all feel empowered to talk up these ideas at board meetings, landscape meetings, and with fellow residents. We need to get organized and develop a long-term plan for change. And I'm sure John will have many ideas to assist us with this. Write letters to our paper, write a forum letter about what you learned at this meeting, for instance. Let's bring in this as public awareness. The forum, by the way, a lot of people read that. If you want to get messages out and you think your words are lost, write a forum letter to get people's attention. Above all, this will only work if it's a collaborative effort. So we all need to work together. This is the reason Sustainable Rossmore exists, to inspire us into action as a group. No one can do it alone. Carol Weed with her wonderful work in recycling can't do it alone. John Moe and his composting can't do it alone. Adrian and Solar can't do it alone. And thank you to Barry and Brad for all their work for Sustainable Rossmore, because this will only work if it's a team effort. All right, questions?
Don McGregor has a question, and he will ask you to unmute, and that's it.
Yes, hi. Thanks for having this forum this evening. I'm wondering, in going to a green landscape here at Rossmore, about shrubs and plantings featuring oleander, just to use as a specimen, as an example. What happens if we were to shut the water off or to reconfigure the irrigation in the oleander beds? What will happen to these individual plants if they've been receiving irrigation for decades, but all of a sudden the water is shut off? And I know an oleander is a summer dry plant. What would happen if we were just to shut the water off? There's so much labor in pruning these, as well as the water, which is unnecessarily going on to these plants year after year. But what would happen to these if we adopted this as a program? Do we need to replace all the shrubs to go sustainable, I guess, is my larger question.
So where there's room to spread, let the shrubs grow. The oleanders along Rossmore Parkway used to be pruned, I think, every year. And they've stopped pruning them, which is excellent. In terms of watering, I don't think anybody's talking about turning water off completely. In terms of what happens if you lessen the amount of water they get. Aren't you a horticulturalist? Do you have an answer for this, Don?
Well, yes, but in the spirit of collaboration, I was hoping we might be able to have some experience here, because it's a big thing to shut these down. But here in our building, there is a border with oleanders, and they're pruned at least once a year, and they take off 2 to 3 feet of oleander. But I would like to try it. But before going ahead and shutting off the water or suggesting it, I just was looking for an additional opinion.
Yeah, so cutting back on water. Oleanders are very adaptable. It's like a lot of our mature oak trees. Some of them don't like any summer water. Some of them will take no summer water, and you put a lawn around them, mature oak tree, and they adapt just fine. So plants can be very adaptable. But this is a great subject to be discussing with John in the future about what happens when you have these mature plants and you want to cut water back on them. As far as I know, you can keep cutting it back to see if they impact the plants at all, and kind of test what their minimum is, but they're extremely drought tolerant. So
thank you.
All right, thank you, Don.
Marianne Clark has a question.
Marianne Clark.
So you unmute yourself. and ask it.
Unmute yourself, Marianne. Hi, Marianne.
Hi, Richard. I have a question about oleanders that are planted too close to heat pumps in
Too
our
close-
entry.
Too close to what?
Heat pumps,
Heat
air
pump.
conditioning units.
Okay.
They're planted within about 2 feet. And I mean, not 1, not 2, not 3, but a dozen planted really close to the heat pump. So I'm wondering what happens when they get larger and somebody is trying to remove or install a new heat pump. And how do we work with, as landscape reps, with the MOD or Terra Landscape, I guess? when it comes time to plant new plants?
So these are all questions, so that could be discussed with John. In terms of,
Okay.
so the article, Landscaping in Fourth Dimension does talk about existing plants. We can't suddenly just let all the plants grow. So if there are ones that are kept pruned next to the heat pumps, they would be kept pruned. So there, I'm talking about, let's start finding areas where we can let stuff grow. And when comes time to replace them, let's put in size appropriate plants and place them appropriately. But you bring up a good topic, but I touch on that in that Fourth Dimension article. So what I'm going to do before I ask Barry if there's any last question here is, I think I'm going to, so I've got some really good information from John about who designs landscapes here. And I think what I'm going to do is type it up and forward it to someone that could be sent out after John looks at it to see if it's accurate, because it's good information that none of us really knew until he pulled back the veil and told us how the design works here. So I'm going to type it up and see what he thinks of it, maybe fill in any missing pieces, and then forward it, and then it can be emailed out. All right, so.
Are there questions in the room?
Question two. Okay.
Okay.
I see that a lot of the replacements of the lawn are rocks and stones and mentioned boulders, but don't these stones and rocks absorb heat and keep the atmosphere hotter and then hurt the underground roots by killing them with the heat?
So she's asking, so you're actually asking two questions about lawns are taken out, rocks are put in. So I'm envisioning two scenarios. One is where you have mature trees, any trees where you have rocks around the base of them. It looks very nice, but when that hot sun heats those stones up, you're doing a hot stone therapy on the roots of that tree, and it's frying those tender roots. So most of you know, I wrote the tree guidelines that's on the Rossmore website, and that is covered it's a 12-page document. You might want to look it up in the Landscape Department website, tree guidelines, and you could look at the different categories in there. It does mention that. So the other question you were asking is about lawns removed, and right now, if planting is not put in, maybe there's large areas of mulch, but I don't think any areas are covered with large areas of rock. Yes, John?
There are some mutuals that have Lodi stone that was put in the past, and I do want to note that we're not doing that.
All right, so John says in some areas where lawns are removed, Lodi stone, which is a type of gravel, I guess, is placed there. So that's it's a very Arizona kind of look, a very desert scape. He says that that's not being done anymore right now. So I wasn't aware that that's being done. So I think, yes, let's make it this last question. Okay, well, we have one.
I was wondering why are we watering oleanders at all?
Pardon?
Right. It's totally unnecessary. We should not be watering any oleanders.
Because she's saying we should not be watering any oleanders here. They do need a little bit of water. They're very drought tolerant, but zero, I don't think there's. So that's my thing. Whenever yes, she's saying they're all over the highway. Drive down to Highway 5 up to Sacramento. They're in the median. Who the heck is watering those?
Nobody.
And who's pruning them? Nobody. So that's a great testament to their durability.
Right.
But that could be an area, oleander, greatest plant for California. The flowers are amazing. If you let them grow, you see around Rossmore Parkway, all the flowers they produce. We can cut way back on water. Maybe that's the preferred one at some point. So by the way, I have a column starting in Rossmore News at the end of this month. I think it's called Seeing Green. It's going to be a monthly column addressing all these things I'm talking about. And one of them, I'll probably talk about dwarf oleanders, because these monsters are putting in just way too big. But there are some dwarfs that are more manageable sizes that we might want to start introducing here.
With that, I'd like to thank
Hey, thank you for the time. Hey, thank you.
Okay.
That's your one. That was wonderful.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. Let's move on to. Okay.
I just want to we'll wrap this up real quick here. There we go. Okay. Carol's not here. She's.
I'm on the,
Oh, you're
I'm
on?
zooming.
Oh, you're zooming. Okay. You want to talk
Yes.
about this a little bit?
Sure. I just want to mention that if you go to the brand new website and click on the film series, you'll get to see the trailer for this film. It's amusing, it's witty, and it also has information about ways that we can use less plastic. And then you can advance to the next one.
Maybe.
And Trash Talk is going to also be about water. How about that for timeliness and coordination? I hope no one in the room is ever using their garbage disposal. That's an incredible waste of water and of nutrients that needs to go in the soil. So anything you might have put down the garbage disposal in the old days should be going in compost. But recycling also saves, if we reuse things, bottles, bags, whatever, then you don't have to make a new one over again. And everything that you make, whether it's out of plastic or cloth or metal, all takes incredible amount of water in the construction process. So save water, reuse things, and you'll save money too. That's it.
Okay. Question back there? Or?
I'd like to share some information. Thank you. My name is Marie Kahn, and I want to add one quick paragraph to applaud Richard and GRF board chairman Dwight Walker, who were both advocating collaboration as we try to deal with the environmental crisis that we are facing. And GRF President Walker was charged by the GRF board at the last meeting to, as he said, write to the governing entities all over our area of the county in order to move toward not a hugely expensive swerve on every street corner or every golf course or every yard. There's a more efficient way to do it instead of having a big water recycling facility for one golf course at Rossmore, or for both of our golf courses, but not for the landscaping. It would be a great idea to have a massive and expensive widespread water recycling for reclaimed water for irrigation. And he is going to be writing to the governing agencies, surrounding governing agencies in the immediate future to propose this. And certainly the more we talk about that with our neighbors and educate ourselves about the possibility, the more chance we would have. Of course, it's an enormous project for the idea. And I recommend that everybody take at the last GRF meeting, which the last Thursday, which was on the 28th of July, about 1 hour and 10 minutes into that meeting, the board discusses these issues. And it's very informative. We won't presentations about that. So this discussion, much really. So I recommend it.
Thank you. We will definitely be doing a number of things with these. Yes, yes, sir. We definitely will be doing a number of things to promote the whole idea of increasing recycling in Rossmore, well, recycling water across Contra Costa County. I mean, that's the only way to solve this problem. And so we all need to get behind it, and we will definitely be using the facilities of Sustainable Rossmore, our ability to bring people together to encourage this to happen. Okay. And we will be having the next meeting in September. I'm not absolutely sure that's going to be the 6th. I think we decided at the last steering committee to actually move it a week later because it's Labor Day, just the day before. But we'll be sending out a notice for that. And if you check out the new website, you'll be able to see it all in there. Okay. And we'll definitely be speaking of the new website, we'll be definitely putting these talks and slides from tonight. Those will be up on, be accessible through the website. So check it out. Okay. With that, I'd like to thank everybody. See you next month.
Yes.
Okay.
I was gonna ask John T. about that.
Oh, no. I'll ask him a question.
Would it help accelerate the